All right, so to complete our figure study, what we're going to do first is need a second piece of paper. I printed out the slide so I could have it so you can see, but for our purposes, you're going to be looking at a digital version on the computer. If you want to print them out, you could right-click, copy that image, and then insert into a document and save from there. The first step in preparing my paper so I can just have a few equal spaces to draw in is I'm going to take my paper, turn it so that the long side is parallel to the edge of my table, and the fold it hamburger style. And then I'm going to fold it one more time in half again. And then I'm going to fold it a third time in half again. And those folds are going to help me divide my space, but also give me center balance lines as I'm working. So if I open up my paper, I'm just going to use that first one. I'm going to leave this space. I'm going to use a pen or a pencil to trace down that center line. And that is going to be my center balance line. So I always want to make sure that I have a center balance line on my paper. So as we're starting and we're practicing, get in the habit of having that center balance line. Then after I've done my center balance line, I'm going to divide it into 9 equal spaces by placing 10 lines or close to equal spaces as I can. If you need to eyeball it because you don't have a ruler, that's fine. You can use any other tools that you might have. We talked about sight measurement with the tip of the pen and how you can measure that way. It's up to you. Just try to get them as equal as you can as you move forward. I made more than 10 marks. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So then I'm just going to go ahead and erase the extra just so I don't get confused. But you can make them as wide or as small as you want. You could use a whole sheet of paper. I'm just doing a small sheet because we're just capturing the basic placements and movements. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is look at the relationship to the center balance line. And I'm going to use this top photo as the one that we're going to work with. When you're finding the center balance line, you want to find the center of the model or the image where the sternum is and where the collarbones meet together. So that little clavicle spot we want to find. And I'm going to make a parallel, drop a vertical line just going straight down. I'm going to use a ruler. You can just make a straight line or envision where that straight line is. But I'm just going to make a straight line that goes down. This straight line is going to represent my balance line. Then I need to figure out what my action line is. How is the body moving and in what angle is that body curved in? So from the clavicle, follow the sternum through the belly button and into the center of the groin is going to help you figure out that curve. Okay, so that curve line is very important because we're going to place that in our design as well and on our drawing. So I'm going to use this lime green color, hopefully, or light blue color, so hopefully you can see it. So I know that my shoulder line is always in the same spot in between heads 1 and 2, or sorry, head 2, in between line 2 and 3, about halfway. So I'm going to make a mark. That mark is going to start where my sternum is, and my line parallels down almost and then curves away right above the belly button. So above 3, but underneath 2, which is the apex. So what it's going to do is go down and start to curve out. And line 5 is always where my waistline is. So I'm going to make that little curve line. And that's my action line. Okay, so that's how the body's moving. Then once I have my action line, I'm going to go ahead and plot the shapes of my torso. So I'm going to look for the angle of the line for the torso, and I'm going to find the angle of the widest part of my hips. Okay, and we're going to plot those lines. So once I've identified those, I'm going to go back up to 2. I'm going to use a ruler just so you can see the proportions. My space is about 1/2 of an inch. So in order to get the correct angle for my shoulders, I need about 1 inch because it's 2 heads wide for the shoulders. I'm going to measure that same angle with my ruler and then move that over. And I'm going to, if I'm using a grid ruler, make a line that is 1 inch long within that space. Remember, our shoulders are always 2 heads wide, so that's why I'm using this to kind of help show that. I'm going to take my ruler, make it my angle on my drawing, and I'm going to move that over. And again, this one is also 2 heads wide, so I'm going to make my line 1 inch long. It does go over the center just a little bit, and it's slightly higher than that 4th head because my hip is popped and angled. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have that adjusted. Line 4 is my waist, and that line 4 is going to parallel the bottom of the hip, and that is going to be about a 1/2 inch as well. So I'm going to center that, and that's a 1/2 inch because that's 1 head wide. And then from there, I'm also going to mimic the top of my rib cage or my torso. So I'm going to meet them together. They're not overlapping, they're just kind of meeting together. And that also is about 1 head. So then I'm going to connect those shapes. So what I'm doing is just placing the trapezoid for the torso and the trapezoid for my hip area. My waist is still back here, so this one actually could probably get a little lower. Doesn't need to be quite as high, but it doesn't have to be perfect right now. Okay, we're just trying to plot those general placements. Then my angle of my knee is always on line 7. So line 7 angle of the knee isn't quite the same angle as the hip area, but I am going to go ahead and make sure that I'm actually going to change this. I don't think it's such a drastic change here because it's popped. So I'm going to change that just a little. So my angle of my knees on 7, I'm just going to kind of drop that line through. I want to know where that line is so that my lines as I go to connect down will make more sense. So if I look at the center of this one, from the center down to the knee, that's my knee. Center, that's my ankle. So straight line down to my knee, and it's on that line. Ankles are always on 8, and straight line down as well. This leg over here is going out. So it's coming out from here. It's on the other side of center. So I'm going to draw a line down to my knee for that line 7. And then it's going to go down, not quite vertical, but a little bit on an angle. And then I'm going to plot that angle in. If I wanted to double check to see if this angle is the right angle, I might need to adjust it and have it come out over here farther. However, you're going to adjust it. Just trying to plot it just quickly so you have that. I'm going to do my foot. Plot my foot. The arm is going down and then back up. So my arm from this space is down, always elbow in line with the waist at 3, and then it's going back up. The hand is in line with the bottom of the chin. So my hand, I could just draw a little trapezoid shape. This one you can't really see, but it does go straight out. So it's going to go out, and then it's going to go back up. And the hand is right above the head. The angle of my head is on the opposite side of my center balance line. So if I look at the center balance line going up, I know my head is all in this space over here. That is only going to be about 1/2 inch long, or that space as well. And the neck is just kind of curved, okay, because the rest is going to follow into place. If I wanted to go ahead and draw the shape of the head, I can draw in the shape of the oval. All right, so that's all I have to do to capture the motion and capture the movement of the dynamic pose. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do another one quickly, walking through the same steps. Identify the center balance line. Divide into 9 equal spaces by adding 10 lines. I'm going to go to the image and look at the center balance line, find the center clavicle, and make the curve. So again, from the center of space 2, and it's going to curve down to line 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the bottom of head 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to curve my spine. I'm going to find the angle of my shoulders, and I'm going to center that with my center of my spine, or the curve of the body. So in this case, mine is a little bit more than a 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to do a 1/2 inch out this way. And here. Then I'm going to find the angle of my hip down here. And I know the widest part of my hip is slightly lower. And I'm going to do the same thing. Line up where the center was and go out a 1/2 inch from either side. Find my waist. It parallels up here at 3. Because I want the high hip, I'm going to lower it a little bit less than center of the waistline, so I'm going to move it down just a little bit. I'm going to make it about 1 head wide. And the same with the torso, just so I have those little angles to help me with. Then I'm going to connect. And I'm going to follow the curve because the body is crunched a little bit, so I am going to follow that curve. My angle of my knees are at 7, and that parallels this line. And my legs are crossing, so my knee is going to be slightly towards center here, down, and an ankle is going to be almost on the majority of the right side of the center. Then I'm going to make my foot. Same on this hip. This leg is going down. My knee is going away. It crosses back over. And then I have another foot back behind. This ankle might be up a little bit higher. Find the angle of the head, which is on the opposite side of center. Placement of the arm. And I'm just going to plot where the placement of the arm is. Okay, so at the end of all of your drawings, you should have a set that just capture the motion quickly. If you need to write out where placement is, please do. We are looking that we are getting the proper body proportions. So that means in head 1, or from lines 1 to 2 should always be the head. The torso or shoulder line is always going to start in about 1/3 or close to half of head 2, in between lines 2 and 3. So this is the shoulder line. Your waist is always at 3, along with your elbows. The lower hip or the crotch or groin line is always on line 5. Okay, that is actually going to get a little bit lower because it does actually only take about 2/3 of head 4 up. But we would like to know where that waist is so we can kind of draw those lines. Our knees are always on 7. And our ankles are always at 8. Okay, so we always want to know those placements. As we move forward, we're going to really be looking for them. All right, you have 4 to do or 5 to do on your own in the module, and then I am here for feedback, but again, they should just capture the motion. They do not need to be perfectly drawn. Okay, so all of them are just capturing the motion quickly, and the idea is to get the general placement in before you go and do any refinement or structuring of the body.